We have a lot to cover here in today's video, including some trade talk around the Toronto Maple Leafs. If they fall to the Boston Bruins, are we going to see a blockbuster Mitch Marner trade? It seems to be all the rage in the media right now. The fan base is screaming for it. Is it going to happen? We'll discuss how it could work, the complications surrounding it, what teams could he even go to, what kind of returns would even make sense for Toronto, and how tricky of a situation and delicate deal this could turn out to be. Plus, we have trade talk around the Washington Capitals. The Kraken have fired their head coach. We now know the Vezina Trophy finalists. Lots of other news around the league as well, including some prospect signings, some talk about some veteran players who might be hanging them up, and lots of other injury updates and roster moves around the league. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to cover here today. Of course, the playoffs are moving along here. We had our first team eliminated last night. The Washington Capitals get swept by the New York Rangers. The President's Trophy winners get to move on in quick fashion, get rested up and ready for round two, which right now is looking like they're going to do battle with the Carolina Hurricanes, but of course that's not set in stone. The Islanders are hoping to have something to say about that, but find themselves in a 3-1 deficit. So that's certainly going to be tricky for them to come back on. So the Capitals, which were by far the weakest team in the playoffs, many were shocked and surprised that they made it. I was too. I really thought one of the upstart younger teams moving up the rankings, whether it be the Red Wings or the Sabres, would have been able to catch them, and they did not. Washington, really, you could make an argument that really had no business even being there. And, unfortunately, with the way the Eastern Conference worked out this year, they get in with a absolutely horrendous goal differential. Alex Ovechkin, not even on the score sheet, and the Rangers move on. And it's just that simple. It was not close. And Caps are done. Changes are going to come there. The Rangers get rested up for the next round. Of course, tonight we're going to see Tampa try to survive once again as they do battle the Florida Panthers down 3-1. Of course, we saw Mikhail Sergachev miraculously return in the last game. Actually played pretty decent, was a contributor as well. And the Lightning are going to try to survive and send this to a game number 6 here in a few days later this week. So lots of interesting action. Of course, the Vegas Golden Knights try to go up 3-1 on Dallas tonight, but it's been a road series dominated by victory here so far, with the road team winning all 3 games in that series. So the Dallas are going to try to continue that trend and get that series knotted up at 2 if possible. Now, as I mentioned as well, we had some breaking news just a short time ago earlier tonight, and there's a dedicated video on the channel which I went into a little bit more analysis. So if you want more thoughts on that, go watch that video after this one. But the Kraken have fired head coach Dave Hakstol. Of course, he was there for 3 years. I was personally quite shocked when he was announced as a new head coach, first head coach in Kraken history. But given the people they had to pick from, I was quite surprised. But we know Ron Francis tends to be a very careful, calculated person and patient. And I can understand I guess once we learn more about the approach and everything, kind of learn about what Francis liked about him. But he finished with a record of 107, 112, and 27. First year wasn't good, but weren't expected to be good. Last year, they definitely exceeded expectations. Like I said, it was a bit of a scenario where I thought they were a prime candidate for regression. They just had everything go right. Several players had career highs, and it's almost impossible to follow that up and duplicate it. So I really did suspect they were going to regress. Now, did I think they were going to regress as much as they did? No. And because of that, obviously, Ron Francis didn't think that either. So he puts that on the coach, and Hakstol's out. I mean, he was the finalist for the Jack Adams Award just last year in 2023, and now he's out of a job. So after 3, and I believe he had an extension as well, if I'm not mistaken, that kicked in, or hasn't even kicked in, that he signed last year. So not good there. I suspect some of the names you're going to hear around this opening include Dan Bilesma, who's in the organization in the AHL, done great work there. Previous experience, of course, and a few stops in the NHL. So lots to consider in his name. Dean Evison has lots of history, of course, with Ron Francis as well. So got to wonder about that possibility. And I've seen one person mention on social media, which is definitely a far stretch. But as of right now, we're led to believe that Rod Brind'Amour is not technically re-signed with Carolina for next year and beyond. If there any reason they come to issues getting him signed, there's lots of history there too. So you got to wonder. But at this point, I fully suspect Brind'Amour is going to get signed. He's one of the best coaches in the game. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. But if he does, on the odd chance he does, then I suspect every team in the league is going to be wanting to talk to him that's looking for a coach. So we'll see. But Kraken fire head coach Dave Hakstol, and we'll await to see what direction they go in. We found out today as well the Vezina finalists for the top goaltender in NHL this season. No surprise, Connor Hellebuyck, Thatcher Demko, and Sergei Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky was a small surprise for me, but Hellebuyck and Demko not. I think Hellebuyck wins this award, and by a lot. I don't think it's going to be close. I suspect Demko will be second, and Bobrovsky will be a distant third. I kind of thought Jordan Binnington might get that third spot. Doesn't really matter. They're not going to win the award, to be honest. I think this is Hellebuyck, which we're not seeing Vezina Trophy Connor Hellebuyck in the playoffs. But his regular season was phenomenal. He definitely deserves to win this award. But we will see when the announcements come later on. But those are your three finalists. The Maple Leafs have signed one of their prospects, right winger out of Russia, Nikita Grebyankin, who gets a 3-year ELC. He's a right winger, like I said, from Russia. Just finished up a season, joins the Leafs, and it is effective immediately too, which is surprising because their season could come to an end in the next playoff game. Their Marlies AHL team was just beat out by the Belleville Senators on the weekend, so their season's over. So there's really no worries for him to go play unless he gets into the Leafs lineup. I guess he can come to North America and practice with them, and that's about it. I'd be shocked if he got into a game unless they extend their playoffs and surprise us all. Yeah, we'll see, I guess. But he was a 2022 fifth rounder. Either way, he's definitely somebody to keep into consideration for next year's roster. And we'll see. There's also reports that the New York Islanders are set to sign former NHL goaltender Marcus Hogberg, who was with the Ottawa Senators. Played parts of a couple years, was in their system in North America for I think probably 4 or 5 years total, up and down. Played AHL, I think a little bit in the East Coast League, some in the NHL. Just had a hard time finding consistency. Now Hogberg was a good goalie at times, but he was also not somebody they felt they could trust to get into a long-term commitment with. So he ended up going back to Europe, and he's played in Sweden for the past 3 years. And the Islanders are reportedly set to sign him, which surprised me. We don't know the terms of the deal either. But right now, they've got Sorokin. I know Sorokin didn't have a great season. He struggled, which is why he's on the bench right now in the playoffs. But he's got an 8-year extension kicking in. And they got Varley signed for 3 more years. So there's no real NHL opportunity unless they're going to try to trade Varlamov, which I don't really see happening. So, yeah, I guess, he could go to the American Hockey League, be their number 3 at most. I'm not sure how he would compare to their other, prospect or depth goaltenders in their AHL system right now in Bridgeport. But, yeah, I'm not shocked he'd try to come back to the NHL. Looking at his stats in Europe, he's done well. So I'm not completely shocked he's getting a chance to go somewhere. I'm just surprised at where it could be. Now, that has not been officially confirmed yet. We'll see if those reports turn out to be true. Of course, like as I mentioned with the Capitals losing last night, there is some talk that longtime NHLer TJ Oshie might be done. He still has another year in his contract, so it's possible he plays next year. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves and say he's retiring or going to end up on LTIR next year, but the guy's been having a tough time with his health. He's battled a lot this year just to be in the lineup. He played Game 4 against the Rangers with a broken hand, and according to, I think it was, I believe it was Dylan Strome being interviewed post-game after the loss, said that the amount of work that TJ Oshie has to go through just to prep himself to play is insane. So if his body's that banged up and that rough of a shape, and he's played a long time, he's not afraid to get physical. So I'm sure he's got his fair share of wear and tear. And if he's going through that difficult of a time just to get on the ice, it wouldn't be shocking if we found out that, maybe this is it for him. He also stayed on the ice after the loss against the Rangers a little longer than you'd expect. So it kind of made everybody wonder, maybe this is it for TJ. So we'll see. He's had a heck of a career. It's a shame if he can't keep going. He does have a contract for another year, so he'll get paid regardless. But could be an LTIR situation for Washington next year. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And, of course, I don't know if or when we're going to get any kind of confirmation or anything. It could very well be until training camp next year or sooner, until he reports and goes through the proper channels to be analyzed. I'm not sure what we'll hear on that front. Minnesota Wild prospect Danila Yurov, who was, of course, a first-rounder a couple of years back, is expected to extend his contract, according to Michael Russo, in Russia for another year. So they're going to have to continue to wait and be patient to bring him to North America. I know the long-term hope and expectation is that he'll join Joel Eriksson Ek as being a top 6 centerman. So we'll see. I mean, he has a lot of potential, lots of skill and talent there to be excited about. They're just going to have to wait longer to get it into North America and into their system here. The Pittsburgh Penguins, according to assistant GM Jason Spezza, are moving on from American Hockey League head coach J.D. Forrest. So Forrest is out as their AHL coach, as well as his assistant coach Kevin Porter. So they'll be looking for some more new coaches down there as well. The Oilers have recalled Jack Campbell and Philip Broberg from the AHL. I don't expect Campbell to play by any means, but he's basically there just on the practice squad and just in case to staying sharp. Should they ever run into a situation where they might be desperate to put him in. The Red Wings have signed one of their prospects as well, Andrew Gibson. He gets a 3-year entry-level contract as well. Winnipeg Jets forward Vladimir Namestikob. What an injury that ended up being after getting a puck to the face after a slap shot was deflected. Get up into his right up into his face. Has a broken cheekbone is the diagnosis. And surprisingly, he has not been ruled out for the next game. So it's kind of crazy, but I guess it's possible that with a proper, bubble on like we saw Bernard, he could play. I would be surprised if he does. I would think he'd need some time before he makes that attempt, but they have not ruled him out, surprisingly. But that was the diagnosis. I'm sure many of you have seen that replay in the Avs-Jets game here from the other night. So it's, not pretty situation. And he's certainly dealing with, I'm sure, lots of pain for sure. Now, one thing we heard from Elliotte Friedman today regarding the Washington Capitals, of course, since their season's wrapped up now, is that even though it's going to be challenging and tricky to do, they are expected to explore trading goaltender Darcy Kuemper this year. Of course, he's got 3 years at $5.25. Definitely didn't have a good season. Charlie Lindgren stole the starting job from him and was their go-to guy in the playoffs. So there's no doubt it makes sense for Washington to try to move on. They also have Hunter Shepard waiting in the wings for an NHL opportunity, and he does appear, in my opinion, to be ready for at least backup duty. He's accomplished a lot in the American Hockey League, and I think he's ready for a chance. And to be honest, I don't expect the Caps to be a super strong team the next few years. So it's not like you're going to be setting high expectations here and you're, thinking it's going to cost you a championship. They're not that caliber team right now. So to me, if they can move Kuemper and go with Lindgren and Shepard, the next couple of years would be ideal. But again, when they have that kind of contract and you've been struggling, that's not going to be easy to move. There's teams out there that could use a goalie for sure. Darcy Kuemper can definitely be better. This is one of his worst seasons of his career. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He can get the job done. But it was not his year. Now, keep in mind, the team in front of him also, wasn't the greatest defensively this year and certainly played a big role. But we'll see as we kind of monitor that, potential rumor and trade situation that we could be looking into here over the summer. And in Toronto, of course, like I said, the hot topic here in the last 24 hours or plus is the Leafs and Mitch Marner and what's the future hold. All the insiders, Chris Johnson, Elliotte Friedman, all saying that if the Leafs can't come back from this 3-1 deficit they find themselves in against the Bruins, that we're going to be the end of an era, and it's going to be significant upheaval in Toronto with the roster. Now, when it comes to other members of this team and staff, I think a lot of people think Sheldon Keefe is in trouble if they lose in the first round. That's fair to say. He's been there for a while. If he hasn't been able to help them get over the hump, considering how easily you see NHL teams move on from coaches, that would not be shocking at all. Now, Brad Treliving, he's only been there for a year. This is his first full campaign, so I'm not sure that he would be in trouble. Of course, we know that MLSE has a new president. Shanahan, I believe, at the top of the food chain here as team president, has a year left on his deal. Could he be let go? You got to think that's possible, but it is costly for them, of course, to pay people not to work for them, which kind of sucks. But they do have deep pockets, and they could be prepared to do that. Or maybe they let things play out a little bit more in the offices and they just attack the roster. But at the end of the day, a lot of the fan base seems like they want Mitch Marner traded and gone out of town. And I kind of understand why. To be honest, you're paying Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares all significant money. They all have had tremendous, consistent, regular season success. and yet they struggle when the playoffs come. Now, we've seen Nylander's probably been their most consistent playoff performer, and for his efforts, and considering he's been dealing with an illness this year and in past years, I don't know that Matthews has been bad. Like, Matthews has played some good hockey. To be honest, the two quietest players for the Leafs right now amongst that group is Tavares and Marner in this series right now. And for me, a lot of people call them the core four. Is it really the core four, or is it the core two? Because Tavares and Marner don't have long-term contracts anymore. Matthews and Nylander both got their extensions done since last summer with the Leafs for a long time. They're not going anywhere, and trading those contracts will be challenging, obviously, and really I don't think they really want to anyways. They're never going to want to move Matthews. If Matthews ever leaves Toronto, it's going to be on his own accord. That's my take. I mean, look at what he's done for this team. Like, there's no way they're taking a number one center who can put up 60, 70 goals, and they're going to be frustrated and trained. Like, unless he wants to, or he walks himself to free agency and decides to go at some point, which I don't know that's ever going to happen, especially now that his hometown or home state doesn't have a team anymore. We can't say that with any certainty. And William Nylander, to me, is really a prime good Leaf. Like, to me, like, he just... Nothing seems to bother that guy. The market, the pressure, it doesn't get to him. But does it get to Mitch Marner? It absolutely does. And to me, Marner has by far been the biggest disappointment in the playoffs. And like I said before, you have a player like Marner who's not a big guy, highly skilled, can do some incredible things on the ice. But in the playoffs, when the time and space closes up and it becomes way more physical, he's a non-factor, at least way too much. He does do the occasional great thing, but not consistent enough. And we saw the three-way fight, if you will, on the bench, which was really more like a Marner almost, I'm not sure, he was whining by the looks of it, and Matthews and Nylander were kind of talking to him. And you could read Nylander's lips. And he said, I believe it was, "Stop effing whining, bro. This ain't effing junior hockey." Like, basically, like, smart, not like, you got to be, like, how can you not know what to expect? You can't be complaining about the physicality out there. Like, this team wants to beat us. They're showing their urgency, their desperation. That's what teams do when they want to win. You got to show that too, or it ain't going to happen. It's just that simple. And you just don't know that he's built for that type of game. That's the problem, and I think that's why he struggles in the playoffs. And I do think part of Marner's problem is up between the ears as well. He's the hometown kid. Matthews and Nylander, not from there. Not that they don't have the pressure or the expectations and all that, but I think it's a little bit more so even for Mitch, given that his family's there, he's from there, grew up idolizing this team, and wants to be the one who helps him get over the hump and accomplish something they haven't done in forever, right? And it's getting harder and harder to do. But obviously the Bruins have their number, and it's not looking good. This group now is going on 8 years plus. Like, how long do you give them? And that's why the fan base seems to be at a point where they're pretty much ready to ship Mitch out of town. But here's the thing. I put together a list of teams that I thought might work. How could you go about this? How can you shake up this roster? I came up with, like Vegas, the new team in Utah, or the former Coyote team, the Hurricanes, the Kraken, the Ducks, St. Louis. Like, they're not really going to prefer to move him in the East if you can help it. Obviously, some of those teams in the Metro might be interested, but like, it's not going to be easy. He's also got a full no-move clause, and so does John Tavares. So to move either one of them is going to be a real challenge. So they're both a UFA in one more year's time. Okay, so are you going to talk to either of them and say, like, listen, we can't have this. Like, we're not going to sign you at this point. We need to make a move. Like, they're both the hometown boys. They both have full control here. They could completely handcuff that situation, and no matter what the Leafs want to do, they may not be able to do anything. They're both in a position where they can walk as a UFA in a year. They can completely block any move right up until the time they become a free agent, and they could leave with no assets coming back. They could easily do that. Now, Tavares came in as a free asset, as a free agent. I don't think that would hurt as much as Marner leaving, who was a high pick, and there's been lots of talk about him in his future for quite some time. So where do you move him if you can? Do you talk to Vegas? Vegas they seem to want all the big, fancy, rich players. Would they move Pietrangelo? Well, he's got a no-move clause too. I mean, if the Leafs are going to move Marner, they can probably get 2 players, or at least 1 star player back as a top defenseman, I think would be great. And they could bring in another forward as well. A top 6, top 9 forward, like some kind of combination. They need a couple of assets in return at least, like a couple of good ones and maybe some future assets as well. But would a Pietrangelo be a starting point? Well, does he want to go to Toronto? I mean, that's kind of his hometown team too. He's from King City. But he's content in Vegas. They're having lots of success. Is he going to want to leave? Probably not. I mean, moving him to Vegas, it would be tricky. They'd have some pieces there that the Leafs would like, for sure. Not easier said than done. Carolina's been reportedly rumored. I've heard the Carolina Hurricanes and Mitch Marner for a couple of years. What would they move to bring him in? Would they be able to do that? Now, there's a lot of talk about Marty Necas maybe not having a future there. Will they sign Jake Gensel? That's a big question mark. Guys like Brett Pesce, people have been saying should go to Toronto forever, but he's a pending UFA. So that would have to be like a sign and trade or something. Carolina has pieces there that Toronto would like, no doubt. But I don't know how that would work out. Would a Pesce with an extension along with Necas and I don't know, something else. I'm not sure what else they'd have to put in there. Like, would something like that work for them? I don't know. Like that's complicated. The Kraken, of course, we know they could use a game breaker, go out west to Seattle. What are they going to give up? That's another big question. What do they send? Like, they have a lot of mediocre players. There's not a lot of star power there. The couple of potential stars they have in their young guys like Beniers or Wright, are they going to want to move them? Probably not. So again, I think he could be a great help to a team like Seattle, but do they have the pieces that they offer? I don't know. Anaheim Ducks, we know Pat Verbeek wants to make a push for playoffs and get this team closer to be more competitive. Well, could Marner be a good add to play with a lot of those top young skilled players? Yeah, he probably could be. He really could be. What would they move for him? Are they going to offer Trevor Zegras? Well, is he going to be any different player than Marner? I don't know that they really want the same style player back. You could say that they play, Zegras isn't to Marner's level yet with his success, but, similar style of play. I don't know, right? And do they have some young defensemen that would be interesting to the Toronto? Sure. But I don't know. They're not going to want to move Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish, or any of those guys. So, again, Anaheim to me makes a lot of sense when you think about it, but do they have the pieces? I'm not so sure. Utah, this new franchise in Utah, formerly the Arizona Coyotes, we know that Ryan Smith, the new owner there, wants to spend money, make this team better, and give them everything they want. Bringing in a star name would be huge. Okay, makes a lot of sense. What are they going to trade to get Marner? Are they going to have to move Clayton Keller, who they just introduced to the fans as being like their star guy? I don't know. I mean, is Keller going to be a better fit in Toronto than Marner is? I don't know. Sean Durzi, a player who they originally drafted, they probably would really like to have Durzi back at this point, the way he's developed. Durzi and Keller for Marner, or maybe there's another piece with Marner. Like, that could make sense. For the Leafs, I'm not sure it makes perfect sense for the Utah franchise. I mean, to some extent it does. But could that be a deal? We know the Leafs don't really have the answers long-term in goal right now for goaltending. What about St. Louis? What about a deal that would be centered around Colton Parayko, who, again, has trade protection and have to waive and agree to this, and Jordan Binnington? What about, because Binnington's been rumored to be on the block too, that maybe the Blues move forward with Joel Hofer between the pipes. Parayko and Binnington for Marner and Robertson or something. I don't know. Something along those lines. Would that work? That's everything I came up with, just kind of spitballing. To me, that might be the one between that or Utah that makes the most sense. But again, the key thing here, like I said, is Marner has full control here. If he does not want to leave, you can't make him leave. So could we see a coaching change? Highly likely, regardless of what happens. If the Leafs lose early, Sheldon Keefe being fired would not be shocking news. But to see a trade and to see a John Tavares or a Mitch Marner agree to waive to, set off a blockbuster deal would be surprising. I don't see Tavares doing it. The only way Marner does it, he has to be in his head thinking, you know what, I'm ready to leave. I need a change. I can't hack this pressure. If they want to trade me, fine. And unless he comes to that, it's going to be complicated. It's possible, like I said, that he either works out a Matthew Tkachuk style sign and trade to go wherever he wants on his next contract, or walks as a UFA and completely cuts off the leverage for the Leafs to get much back for him. That's the way they've structured these contracts. It's almost all signing bonus, all no move clauses. Like, they've completely given these guys full control of the team. And now when we're hearing the fan base scream for change, it's almost impossible. But let me know your thoughts. Is it time for a Marner trade? Where does he go? What are the mock trades looking like? What are the options? Can he really do it? Or are they handcuffed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.